G'day. G'day, Nick from AustralianNativeBee.com. Today's interview is a bit of a doozy. I have been meaning to go out and visit Doug Irvine for quite some time. Doug Irvine's been keeping stingless bees since the early 90s, and he does everything himself. He mills up his own timber and makes probably, I think, some of the most beautiful stingless bee hives in Australia. They're not only beautiful, but they're practical. One of the other reasons I wanted to visit him is Doug was actually working on something similar to the series Super at the same time I was. And he calls them frames, so I just wanted to go out, interview him, find out a little bit of the history about how he started. So there's tons of information in these next few videos, and if you have the patience to watch and learn from someone who's been doing it a long time, then you'll really enjoy these. So I won't do an intro to all the videos. I'll just this one, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. So do you want to tell us about yourself, Doug, and how you started?
How I started with bees? Well, the family farm was not great farming country, it was mallee country. And there are many species of mallee. They're eucalypt, and most of them are great beekeepers' trees. They're good nectar and pollen. And we had an old fella, he seemed very old to me, mostly about my age. He used to bring his bees onto our farm each year, and I become very interested, and he seemed as though he wanted me to come and help him out a bit, so Mum made me up this veil, and I had 2 pairs of overalls and 3 pairs of socks, and I went off to help old Flenny Rogers in the stinking hot summer. And old Flenny said, "No, you got to get a sting or two, you got to build an immunity." And the first day I worked with him until I got 1 sting, and then he sent me home. The next day I worked with him until I had 2 stings. The third day I stayed there till I had 3 stings. By the end of the week I had built an immunity, and it stayed with me for the rest of my life. Even though there have been some pretty extensive periods where I haven't had honeybees, I've always retained the immunity. The farm was always a struggle, and I had to go away to make income off farm. The way I did that mostly was to go shearing. I was a reasonable shearer and I could make good money at shearing. Hard work on the back, but it was a way for me to build up my honeybee numbers. And that was my goal. I wanted to have as many honeybees as I could as an adjunct to our family farm. And that's what I did. But when my father became interested, when he could see I was making money from honey, he became interested as well. And between the two of us, we got into a fairly big way, commercially, peaking at about 1,200 hives for a while, though I got rid of a lot of those hives. I bought about 600 hives that were non-standard dimensions. When I decided that I'd be better off without them and work the 600 that I originally had properly, I found that selling the non-standard hives was real hard. No one wants non-standard gear, and there'll come a time when the stingless beekeeping fraternity, if it ever is going to graduate from being a mum and dad's backyard sort of a hobby thing to being a commercial business, there will be a need to standardise gear so people can sell their hives if they want to, so the industry becomes standardised. It will have to happen eventually, and that's the reason why I've stuck with the oath dimensions in the hives that I make. I can't say as they're the perfect hive, but I don't know of anything that's really significantly better enough for me to want to change. But I do think that the advent of these shallow supers will change the way a lot of people think of keeping native bees for harvesting honey. I think that will be, that will take off.
Where do you see the stingless bee industry going in the future?
Well, it depends on largely on what happens with honeybees in this country. If our honeybee numbers get devastated, and if they're devastated by some pest that doesn't affect our native bees will become extremely important pollinators. And I imagine that will be the reason why they're going to become a commercially kept bee. They won't ever be kept for their honey. That's more of a novelty, but they may well turn out to be specialist, very highly specialised pollinators. But we're a long way from that.
Do you think there will be a stingless bee honey trade in Australia?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I've been keeping these little fellas for a long, long time, and every now and then I think I might just start harvesting honey and doing something with it. But the yields are that small, and in the past the honey that we've been harvesting by the traditional methods of having deep honey supers and spiking and draining, the quality of the honey to me has been extremely disappointing. I think we've got a much better chance of becoming viable as honey producers when we can use these shallow frames, because there's no doubt that the quality of the honey that comes from those is much better than the deep honey supers. I can't see myself fiddling around with small quantities of honey, but no doubt there will be those who do. My future will remain the same, though I'm scaling down. I'll continue to devote my time to making a hive that appears to be appealing to people, that's quality and will last. That's where I see myself going, but could well be that there is a future for people who want to produce honey.
For telling us your story.
My pleasure.